Us Warriors Live podcast 2025. It's our seventh season and the first episode brought to you by Kingz Container Crew once again this year. Will, Brad and Fonz coming to you in January. Don't know if we've done it this early before, boys, but bloody good to see you and at the height of summer. How are you?
Good. Had my first half day back at work, so a little tired. First day back at it today, but otherwise great summer holiday. So yeah, no, traveling, and it looks like Fonz had a good picture of him there out water skiing there, Fonz, for the summer. Did you drop a ski? Did you go down to one? Is that you dropping a ski and going down to one there in that photo?
Yeah, mate. No, good to see you boys. I've been back at work for a couple of weeks, so summer holidays are a bit of a distant memory. But I went down the beach, but yeah, in the bay with the kids, mucking around. No water skiing or anything too adventurous, but caught a few fish and had a good time, so it was good. Yeah.
Oh, a couple of fish. Nice.
Yeah. There's always a few fish around.
Is it easy to catch a fish wherever you go? I've never had luck fishing. It's a myth.
It's easy if you know what you're doing, mate.
Yeah, I obviously have no idea. I just sit there for hours and hours and hours and just pull the same hook I threw out back to me.
Yeah, it's a bit with young kids, you sort of constrain where you can go, and you sort of got to try and do it in a way that's going to keep them interested for time. Yeah. So that's the hardest part. But
nice. Yeah. Oh, good shit, buddy.
And what'd you do, Will? You were going somewhere fancy, weren't you?
No, I hung around for the summer for the Christmas New Year's break, which was a bit of an anomaly for me. But I think we had about 21 people here for New Year's. Pissed down the whole time. So that was good. But we had a good old knees up, and it was fun. And then shithouse weather right through that period. Never seen anything like it here in Canterbury. But last week got down to beautiful Dunedin. Hung out with Brad for a bit. But stayed with our mate Mike for a few days down near Tomahawk Beach. Beautiful.
Great stuff.
Nice weather.
Yeah.
Great beach.
You were quite surprised about the beaches, weren't you? Down this way.
Yeah, well, I lived there for 4 years and I went to the beach twice. But yeah, I went for a walk there every day while I was down there. It's honestly like a tropical island beach. It's just that the water's fucking cold.
It's a shame,
water, beautiful golden sands. Yeah, I'm in love with Dunners again.
Very underrated, the beaches down this end of town. Very underrated. What was I?
Cool.
I can't remember what I was going. Oh, actually, back New Year's. The New Year's, I heard after years of getting shit for walking into your glass sliding door, and what an idiot I am, I hear someone else thump the door as well this time.
Yeah, Nick, Tally's missus. She tried to Adam Fanua Blake her way through that same middle pane that you did through my my three. How do you describe that sliding door, Brad? 3 big panes, and she tried to stack a slider through the middle one.
Yeah.
Probably about 1:30 a.m. I can still look at it now. Still see her face print in there. She really. I thought that was going to be all over, but she passed her HIA and was allowed to keep partying. So, yeah, it was a real highlight.
Just sit down for 10 minutes and then back on the bench.
Yeah, Tally checked her out, put her through some tests, and she's good to go again. But no, good fun. Back to reality now. But the positive is back to the podcast with you boys. And before we get started, actually, I want to put a little shout out to my old mate Matt Kendrick. We're actually meant to catch up with him weekend before last. Him and his family are on their way up here. Made it as far as Oamaru. He keeled over and he's been in Dunedin Hospital ever since. So Matt, if you're listening, mate, get better soon, and hopefully we can catch up with you properly soon. But yeah, what a shitty holidays for him.
Wow, that's heavy. Poor old Matt. Oh, hopefully he's on the mend. Is he on the mend?
I think so. Just sort of maybe just playing a bit of a waiting game. But hopefully this will chew up an hour of those lonely days on the board.
All the best, brother.
Yeah, right.
And the Kingz boys, I was lucky enough to catch up with them today. Bit of a chat. Brad was trying to get in there, but yeah, bit of
technical difficulties.
Believe it or not,
I
while he was on the site, couldn't.
Starting meetings with myself. I started about 8 meetings with myself, ringing myself, shut that down. I was like, geez, it shouldn't be this hard. But yeah, no, it turned out it was poor internet that couldn't get me through the gates. Wasn't without trying.
But, very lucky to have those fantastic Kingz boys on board with us again, the greatest container crew mob in Australasia. They'll be ramping up their Auckland operations, super busy, and they'll have some jobs going. So head to kingscontainercrew.com, hit the work with us tab, and yeah, you might be lucky enough to join their team. I guess we'll crack into a bit of news, eh? It's been a bit happening in Warriors land.
It's pretty early. It feels early to be talking Warriors, doesn't it? Like it's a couple of weeks early, but yeah, it's probably good way to ease in.
Yeah, dangerously early. It's
getting a bit excited. It is an early start to the season. Obviously, we're off to Vegas, so it is only 38 days until round 1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Tohu retirement bombshell, I guess you'd call it. Always potentially on the cards. Start with you, Brad. How'd you feel, mate?
I was a little bit gutted with the timing of it. I wonder if they knew this might have been the situation a wee while ago, so we were better equipped to fill the void. But then that was the selfish thought straight away. But then, it makes sense. It was wrecked, and I don't mind having the money in the pocket now either to go for a little shop. See, what about you, Fonz? You would have thought deeper than me about it. What are the ramifications?
Well, he was pretty busted last year. He was going to need surgery on his wrists, and he got that. And so it was always going to be, how does he come back from the surgery? And I honestly don't think anyone knew. I don't think anyone knew. Like, I don't think the club knew for sure one way or the other. But people were pretty optimistic that he would come good, and he just hasn't. Right, he hasn't come good from that surgery. So I doubt the club was completely shell shocked. But on the other hand, I think there was enough confidence or optimism that he would come good that they wouldn't have been spending the money, if you know what I mean. Like, they would have assumed he was going to be around, and so that this probably does put some pressure on the roster a little bit. That said, like we signed Aaron Clark last year, and he's a 13 there. We've got Walks at 13. We've got some young forwards coming through. So in terms of the position, it's probably a position where we got some coverage, and it doesn't punch a huge positional hole for us in the roster. But I mean, you can't replace Tohu, and like he's sort of, a lot of fans have sort of gone off him to a degree just because he didn't have a great 2024, but that's because he was playing injured all year and ultimately just couldn't keep going. 2023 was nearly the best forward in the comp, and in those dark COVID era years, he carried us on his back. So I just, he's a hell of a player, and I think the club's going to do a proper farewell for him, and I think we should jump on top of that when they do that too, because he really should go down as one of the greats for the club.
That's one thing that I thought was a little bit gutting for him, would be the fact that he's got to sort of whimper out in an off season as opposed to play out his final year and have a bit of a tour around, victory lap type thing around the grounds and that, and enjoy it a bit more. Shame it just gets shut down and that's the end of him.
So understated though that it's sort of almost fitting, like he can just I'm sure they'll wheel him out for the first home game in Mount St. this year, but he doesn't seem like the kind of character that would be bothered about, having that big on-field farewell. Fonz, where do you think he rates in the pantheon of Warriors players and leaders, I guess, in our 30-year history?
I mean, that's really hard. How many seasons did he do with us? 7, I think.
7,
yeah. So he had 7 seasons. He missed 8+ games in 5 of those. So that's quite a complicated legacy that he leaves to me. Like, he as you mentioned, the COVID year, particularly the first one, 2020, our player of the year, played every game. He was absolutely sensational in a team with so many setbacks. Brilliant, and he was captain by the stage for 2023, played 23 games. The other seasons, and those were the seasons where we sort of went to shit. It sort of speaks volumes. He wasn't there, or when he was carrying back a lot of injuries, and we didn't go that well. So it underlines the importance. But yeah, 7 seasons, 117 games. That's the same amount of games he played in only 5 seasons at the Storm.
Exactly the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it exactly the same amount of games?
Exactly the same, yeah. 117 at each.
At each club.
So sort of.
Yeah, I mean, if you sort of think about, I still think he's an underrated player, even though he is rated highly by a lot of people. Like, he's defensively one of the best middles in the game. His ball playing through the middle is so rare. Like, there's maybe 5 forwards in the comp who can ball play like he does through the middle, and none of them are as sort of big and defensively sound as him. And then he had some leadership quality about him too. So, I sort of let's compare him to Simon Mannering. So Simon, one club man, more games for the club, carried us through many more seasons. So there's sort of just a difference there. But Tohu was a much more complete player than Simon Mannering was in terms of the range of skills he had, the different things he could do for your footy team. Compare him to an Ali Lawatiti, who many would say was one of our best all-time forwards. Different players. Ali was more explosive. Like his offloading contact was probably the best in the comp and arguably the best of his generation. But I still look at Tohu and say that the different things he could do for a footy team puts him in, the top 3, 4 Warriors forwards. And there's a case to say that he was the best we've had. Fanua Blake, again, arguably the best prop in the game. And how many years did Fanua Blake do this? Was it 4?
4 in the end. 4 seasons, 86 odd games, I think.
So I think if Tohu did 11 seasons at the Warriors, we're talking about him as our best ever forward. The fact that he only did half.
That's a fair call. It's probably just that sort of, don't like to say durability, because he dragged himself through some pretty painful injuries when he probably shouldn't have at times. But yeah, to miss that many games, miss more than 50 games in 7 seasons, quality wise, and when he was out there, as good as anyone we've ever had. But yeah, I guess we just look back at his 7 years here with just a little bit of an asterisk with how much time he did miss. But leaves certainly a big hole. And who's your pick, Fonz? Or how do they sort of cover for him in the number 13? Is it more of a case of multiple players sort of filling that gulf that he leaves?
Well, before we get to that, who would you say, because you've had to do a bunch of these lists over time, who would you say is our best ever forwards in the history of the club? When you've put these together.
It's a funny one.
Steve Price, Ali, where do you tend to go? Ruben?
Yeah, I'd say Mannering, just because he was, 300 games. Yeah, and, very, very good forward. That he sort of stands at the top of the pile. It's a funny one. If we get time, if not in the next pod we do, just to talk about the sort of lack of long-serving players we've had. But the best ones, quality-wise, after Mannering, is your Prices, your Wickies. They didn't play 100 games for the club. Ali played at about 115, I think. Tohu's around that mark. So the ones that, Campion 2 seasons, Michael Luck got up to 150 something, I think. But the best ones we've had, the best servants, they just, haven't really been, 10 season players. So it's kind of hard to judge. Yeah. But yeah, Tohu right up there.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of what do we do? We're starting to head down that path of picking our best 17 pretty early here when we start talking about this, and it's probably a bit early, but and you sort of got to think about how you're going to do your 4-pack, around that. But really, we saw in past years with Walker there that Tohu would start at 13 and then move to the middle, move to do a prop type role for a second stint, or just play 70, 80 minutes and they just shift him forward. So you can do something similar. Like an Aaron Clark is, I don't think he doesn't have the physicality of Tohu or the ball skill, but he's a 13 who can play prop. And I think he came through in the halves, I think, Aaron Clark. He's definitely a 13 with a bit of ball play. You know? Yeah.
Well, he's more of a hooker coming through. So
I actually think he played in the halves in juniors.
Even before that. Yeah.
I've got a feeling. Someone can fact check me, but I think he was halves into hooker, then into prop, if you know what I mean, in that way.
Yeah.
So he's probably a player who you could have doing that first 30 minutes at lock that Tohu used to do before you bring Walker on, and then Aaron can come back and do another stint at prop if you want to in your second rotation, or have him on the bench there. So that's probably what I think is the obvious thing to do at this point with the roster we got.
Surely it won't be too dissimilar to what they've done for the last 2 months of last season. Yeah. Tohu didn't play.
Yeah.
How many games did he miss at the end of this? So we probably saw their plan with no Tohu then, and you're probably swapping out a Jazz for an Aaron Clark. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Dylan Walker started at 13 after Tohu went down. Whether he's the starting one or whether they look to revert to Walker's role off the bench that worked so well in 2023 and get Aaron Clark to start.
Walker has to come off the bench. He's no good starting. They just opposition just run too many big guys at him, and
I think
by the time the game opens up, he's out of gas. We don't want to do that. We've got to have a different 13 starting and then bring Walks on.
Yeah, his strength is from that 20-minute mark, and that's when he changes the pace of the game.
He was courageous, and he, got through a ton of work still, but like a lot smaller than even Aaron Clark is. Aaron Clark's sort of around almost that 100 kg mark. Quite a burly customer. He started quite a few games for the Titans in the front row, and probably more equipped to handle that, opening 20, 30 in the middle. Just hopefully he can find a bit of that ball playing touch that we've come to rely on a bit.
Yeah, like if you had...
Oh, sorry. No, go Fonz.
I was going to say, like, if you got Fish, Barnett, Clark, Nukore, Catewell, say as your pack, there's enough size across that. There's enough sort of punch, there's enough mobility. I feel like that's reasonably balanced as a starting pack. It's lacking an out-and-out big human in there, because Fish isn't that big as far as props go, and Tohu was kind of a big human there at 13, but I think it's still big enough to do that job.
Yeah. Again, like you said, it's hard this early picking teams. What about the easy one that you can talk about? Who's the next captain? If Tohu,
can we just finish off that number 13 chat?
Are you still talking number 13?
Sorry. I just wanted to throw a couple of wild cards in there just to see if Fonz thinks there any chance. Marata Nukore obviously was brought into that middle rotation kind of at this time last year, then got injured, and then when he came back, he was back into that edge role. I thought he didn't have the best of seasons, but he played a fair bit of lock for number 13 at Parramatta. Is actually their grand final number 13 in 2022. Even Barnett has played a lot of lock. Any chance that maybe one of those two sort of fill that role?
I mean, I don't feel like Nukore has got the all-round game to be a lock in the way Webby likes to play footy. So probably write him off. Barney's probably he's a bit of a, dare I say, a sort of more aware footy player. Let's say that. Yeah, he's got a bit more skill. He probably knows a bit more about how to move into space and put people into space. But, then who are you going to play at prop? Like I feel like we're probably...
That would sort of rely on a Tom Ale or a Dimitri Vaimunga
starting prop,
developing into a real starter. Yeah,
because remember, we're not solving for a 80-minute 13. Walker's going to do 50. We're solving for a 13 to do that first 30-minute stint. So That's why I probably wouldn't go with either of those two there. And I don't think any of the young kids, even if they were the right fit, which I don't think any of them are, I don't think they're ready to start in that very important position. Because for me, given the weakness we're going to have in the halves, it's going to be really important that we play a lot of good footy and smart footy out of 13 and 9. I think that's going to be more where our strength is this year, between Walker, Clark, Egan, Healy, and so on. I think we're going to, and our forwards generally, I think that's our strength this year. So I think we're going to have to have some experienced heads controlling the game through those positions. And so I wouldn't put any of the kids in the 13 for now.
Sorry,
Healy,
Brad.
I forgot about that Healy. He's a prospect sitting there, isn't he? He's going to be interesting to follow. Yeah, right. Who is the next captain then, do you reckon, lads?
What do you reckon, Will?
Well, I have been thinking about it, and I think it has to come down to Barnett and Fisher Harris.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not sure if this would be something I'd think about, but maybe a co-captaincy model has worked in the past. It kind of reminds me of 2001. You had Campion and Jones as co-captains. You had Campion come from a very successful club, probably the best leader on paper as one, and then you had Stacey Jones, who was well established as a very good leader and a important part of the existing roster. Obviously difficult. James Fisher Harris coming in and being captain straight away, but maybe that's a potential way to go. But Fisher Harris coming from Penrith, Kiwis captain, makes a lot of sense. Probably got quite a few years as well if you're looking for a long-term captain. Barnett, seems like he's got quite a long time to come, but he is 30. Obviously come off a bit of a sort of late career breakout year. What do you guys think? I mean, both good candidates. Any wild cards in the mix, Fonz, or is it down to those two?
Well, I think there's three other candidates in the mix. There's Wade Egan, there's Chance, and there's Roger. I think if you're looking at it, they're the five who would be in a conversation. I feel like it's odd that people aren't talking about Roger more, because he captained the club for a number of years, and now he's back. It's not his first year back; it's his second year back. I don't know what position Roger's going to play. It you feel like your captain won't be on the wing, but I feel like fullback's not a bad position for your captain to be in. So, I think Chance or Roger, if either of them were fullback, either of those two would be in a conversation. Wade at 9 too. I mean, I think he's a very experienced player, been at the club a long time now. I think he'd be a pretty good captain, actually. I think he's smart. I think he probably would do well talking to refs, but he's injured so often, and is he 80-minute player? So, and is he quite the right personality, or is he like the ideal vice captain? So I'll probably come down with Fish. I think people sort of say Barney because Fish is new to the club, but like, how does that work next year? So next year, if Fish has been here for a year, do we take it off Barney and give it to Fish? Right? You can't do that, So you got to pick who's the best captain in the club and go with them, whether or not they've been here 2 minutes or 2 years. What I'm not sure about though is, does Fish really want to be captain?
Yeah,
like he's never captained Penrith, captained the Kiwis, but that's 3-4 week camp, 2-3 games. Very different thing to being week in, week out club captain, fronting the media,
press conferences,
all of that. I don't know if Fish actually wants that, to be that. Now he's going to be a leader no matter what, but I get a feeling that maybe Fish doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to do that media side of things, and so
that's a fair call.
If that's the case, then it might be less about sort of who do we think the players are going to listen to more, and who's best placed to front all of that sort of stuff that happens. And so there I'll probably say Barney is. I think Barney's more comfortable with that, sort of getting in front of that. And Roger's got plenty of experience doing it, like I said. So
yeah, I lean towards Barney.
Yeah,
Just
I
for
think
the
he did a
reason,
good,
not that I
good
don't
job with it
prefer
last year.
Fish. I'm just agree with you. I don't know if he could be asked if all the hoopla that comes along with it. I think he just wants to get out there and smash people, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's all about the footy. Yeah, he couldn't care less about all that other stuff. I get the feeling.
They'll be leaders by default because of, and that's how I kind of feel about Egan. He's such an important cog to everything they do on the field that he's, a de facto leader anyway, but doesn't necessarily need the added off field and, talking to the refs, that sort of thing.
And I think they just need.
I don't think they can fuck it up, really.
No, they can. Yeah, you're right. They can't fuck it up.
There's some good candidates.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, we'll see.
Wheel out.
Yeah, and if Fisher Harris was to get it as a new addition to the club, obviously a bit of a precedent with Steve Price, and was a fantastic captain for the Warriors, Dalian captain of the year at one point. But yeah, I'm sure we'll find out fairly soon.
Can I just throw one complete wild card into the mix? This is just total. This is wild, right? I reckon there's a tiny chance that Webby's gone. Okay, Luke Metcalf, this is your team now, right? With Shawnee gone, I'm gonna make you captain.
You're mad. You're fucking mad, Fonz.
I told you it was out there. I told you it was crazy.
I think that would be a big gamble on the fact that he's, even going to see the season out as a starting
good at
player.
playing that position. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. But yeah, just sort of toss it out there.
Yeah. No, need some discussion
I
points.
was always disappointed they didn't make Sean captain back when Simon Mannering stepped down. I just thought it was the right time. He was at the right part of his career. The great playmakers were captains. Stewart, Langer, Fittler, all those guys. And I was always disappointed that they went with Hoffman. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Hoffman,
might be a little too soon for Lukey.
Yeah, I hear
you. You'll be absolutely loving it if they do, Fonz. If you're the only person to predict it.
Wheeling this video again,
yeah. Now, just while you're on, did you have something to add to the captaincy?
I was going to say you're gonna wheel out talking about Rog.
Yeah. So just bear with me here. You know how slick I am with these transitions to presenting, but
because you mentioned that you can't be captain from a wing, and Fonz, and Roger's latest post is quite cryptic.
Yeah,
isn't it?
So let's just I'll bring it up here. I'm just going to get. Don't suddenly show your face there, Fonz. I'm just going to hide that little thing there and go like this. This is if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Spotify, just imagine this.
Hard listen, yeah.
Here we go. So he's said in the caption of his Instagram reel that he shared or video, 2024 made some achievements back in the NRL, cracked 200 games, represented Samoa. We also missed a few targets. 2025, we chase it again. New season, new goals, and maybe a new position. What do you call that emoji there, Brad, with the eyes?
It's so small. Is it the eyes wide open one?
Yeah, looking emoji. And let's get it. And so I'm just going to play this video if you can see it. This is the end of the video. I'm not quite sure if I've got it near the end, but this to me kind of hints that he's already locked in as the fullback. I'm sure they've already got his position behind the scenes sorted out. So just look at this. I think it might take a little while to come up, but there's just a little bit of here we go. Is this it? Well, see that number one, and then it jumps onto his back there. So
it wasn't part of the
original
footage. Their promo stuff for Samoa, was it? Is that old footage or is that?
I don't know. This video is so professionally put together that it's it seems like he's.
Yeah, why would they put that otherwise?
Yeah, so
interesting.
I don't know. It would be weird if that was the case, if that's the way that it kind of, starts coming out. But yeah, I mean, I kind of had almost written off the chances of Roger returning to fullback, and have got some major reservations over it. Fonz, I know your favourite, you'd prefer Chance to remain at fullback. I'm got some big raps on Tohu and what he can, the point of difference he can add. Brad, you're probably the most Roger positive of the three of us in terms of fullback, but
fullback probably, yeah.
What do you think happens now?
Or is he taking Lock? Is he taking over from Tohu?
Man, that's crazy than my Metcalf one. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I don't, to be honest, at this stage of I don't care. I just want to win some fucking games this year. I don't care who's playing fullback. So whatever. Hopefully they've got more brains than us, and they're unlocking and actually playing horses for courses. Put the best team out there. Yeah, I don't care. I've got Rogers my number 2. Chance, I'm not really so keen on Chance as our fullback at the moment. I know it's safety and everything is good reading when you read a bit, but for me, I don't know why. I'd rather not.
So I reckon Roger and Chance are fairly similar players at this point. And so if you're playing Roger fullback, what are you doing with Chance? You're going to put him on the wing? Because we're short of wingers in the squad, right, with Montoya gone.
I just think Chance could be a fucking great centre. He's so explosive and tucked in tight.
I think he's a better. I think in limited time, he's shown he seems more natural in the centres. He was superb against Miller in the last round. Than Roger. You know, obviously Roger didn't get a really long run there, but he certainly never looked super comfortable. I don't know. But what's your thoughts on Chance as a centre, Fonz, regardless of who's fullback?
He's fine, but we've got Ali, Berry, Pompey in the centres, and we've got stuff for wingers. Like, who are your wingers?
Fair share.
Well, that's like when, because we talked about it, and Brad and I were leaning towards a Tohu fullback, Chance centre, Roger wing scenario. But if Roger's your fullback, then you do have a wing spot that's looking dangerously available for Ed Cossey. And you do have it, yeah. I don't know, we really like Pasakala.
Too early.
But, he's still a teenager.
Tohu Picky, I'll just say, I don't think he's a wing. There's no way he could be a winger.
I don't think so.
Picky, Fox Sports seems to think so. Fox Sports predicted round 1 team has, but there's plenty of things wrong with that round 1 lineup that they've predicted. They've got Tohu on a wing, which I don't think will happen in a million years. But we are. Montoya, obviously incumbent. He's gone.
I mean, you could put Chance on a wing. There's no reason you can't put him on a wing. But
is he a little bit? He's good yardage, safe, probably good under the high ball, but probably not quite your dynamic winger that you'd prefer. Finishing ability.
He'll catch the ball, make his tackles, get your yardage. He's not, as far as I know, he's never trained as a wing finisher, which is a massive part of it these days.
So Rog we would all like Rog to be a winger then, would we, this year? Just to shore up that stock, because we've got 2 options at number 1. And even the option of putting Chance at centre. Yeah,
I'd like to see how Rog goes on a wing, but now that
he's factor, mate, that's I don't know if you want to be playing around with that too much.
Well, Roger's probably the best fullback of the 3, but the gap between him and Chance in my mind is not very big.
Yeah,
Tohu just a different player completely. So it kind of depends a bit what you're trying to get out of your fullback at this point and how much you trust Tohu. But it is that. Like, I thought it was obvious when Montoya left. It was because we were going to give his spot to Rog, and so I don't know how you put together a back 5 with them in there. Because does that mean one of the young guys isn't going to get a centre spot as well? What does that look like? You're going to push Berry to the wing or something crazy. Like, it's just I don't really know how it fits, but we'll see. I haven't actually seen the video that went with that post that you just showed with that one coming on. So, yeah, I haven't really thought that through, but it's kind of blown my mind a bit.
Yeah, it's an out of it little thing to have in there. We'll see how that unfolds. I've got to bail in a minute. We've still got 2 spots, and one thing I want to know before I bail: will we be shopping in June for a player? Do you think, or will they sit pay? We've still got 2 players to be named in our top 30, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, they always keep. I think
2 of them.
Yeah,
We're
they
always
keep
one
one.
short. They always keep one, do they?
Well, that's Andrew McFadden said to us they like to keep one in their pocket for
Because I've
contingencies.
noticed
I guess.
most clubs must all do it then. Because I've noticed everyone sort of has one TBC. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, do you think they go looking Fonz? For I guess it's getting a bit late in the piece to pick someone up now.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Matt
I mean,
Lodge?
you're probably. Well, I think there's times like you have to have a certain number in your squad by certain dates. So, but there's been a bit of talk. I've heard a few rumors about a prop coming to us. First grade prop coming to us. I
Half
don't want
decent.
I'll be happy enough. Yeah. So I reckon we are.
Not fucking Matty Lodge, is it?
Come on, Brad.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Fonz. I'm just going to say that news floating around as of yesterday that Francis Molo has demanded an immediate release from St George Illawarra. So
no, it's not
case,
him.
Go somewhere.
I reckon he might end up at Manly.
Oh,
and we might end up with someone from there.
Don't know. Anyway, it's just rumors, but yeah. So we'll see. But I reckon something might play out.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. It's always fun. It's always fun, though. I love those little bits of fun, like sleuthing around, seeing if we're going to buy. I love the buying and purchasing of players.
You might get Paseka here finally, Brad. Your big mate from Manly.
Oh, yeah. I've sort of gone off him a little bit. Oh, no. Yeah, no, I haven't watched him much at all. Right, I really do need to go. I got to go see this bloody block layer about the double brick wall landscape gig I got going on.
Yeah, right.
And then get the gardener in there and just talking about replanting this box hedge, boys. So I'll have to shoot.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, you do that. We'll keep doing this, and
yeah, we'll probably go a bit cleaner now without me butting in all the time. Anyway.
See you, mate.
Bro.
Set them straight, mate. Chip them down and set them straight.
Cheers, brother. Look after yourself. Good to see you, Fonz. Bye.
See you, mate.
See you, bro.
Yeah. So
Fonz,
anyway.
this overlay is gonna not match up once Brad hangs up. So
that's all right.
I'll just leave you as the it's just a blank black box there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what else have we got? I mean, the halves thing seems no clearer than when we last spoke before Christmas. Is there anything you've heard or thought about that's made that any clearer in your mind that about what might happen?
I did a Twitter poll the other day, and it was overwhelming. It was about 65% of people wanted or predicted Te Mare and Metcalf. So, I mean, I think that's sort of the consensus view. Yeah, it was 63% Te Mare Metcalf, followed by Metcalf Boyd at 24%. So almost no love for any combination featuring CHT. And, I mean, that's probably how it's shaping up. I've always said I'd actually go Metcalf and CHT, I think, as the combo with the high ceiling, and I'd have Te Mare and Boyd as my Reggie's halves. But yeah, I suspect that won't happen. I mean, it's sort of the reason it's hard in the halves is because I don't think any combination of them have all the things you want, and you've got to start with how do you want to play? Like, if you look at the squad as a whole, right? What do you reckon our strengths are in the squad?
Good forward pack. I think they match up pretty well with with anyone in the comp. Top 5 hooker and pretty good outside back contingent. Some good finishes, make a lot of yards.
Yeah.
I
mean, I agree. Like our back three in yardage, if it's some combination of Chance, Roger, and Dallin, that's an excellent yardage back three. So, and then the 4-pack, like you said, is good. So you feel like we're going to be doing a lot of our kicking, over the 40. Part of the problem with our halves, like people say, well, we need Boyd there for the kicking game, and Boyd has the best kicking game of the lot. But if our back three and then our forwards are getting us over the ad line more often than not, maybe that's a little less important. I mean, kicking game's always important, but maybe that's a little less important because we'll be kicking on the front foot over the 40, and we're not having to make 50-metre clears off our 20 very often. So there's sort of that. Then, like I said, I think our strength is in some of the experienced players we got around the middle of the field. So Walker, Egan, and our front row, like Barney and Fish. And then, we've got a couple of good young players coming through there. So to me, you're going to want to play quite a lot in the middle of the field. We've got good edge back rows too. I mean, between Capewell, Newcora, if you use him there, and the young kids, you've got a little bit of strike there. So I feel like you can open up the middle and do something through the middle to take pressure off your halves in your game plan. So, I mean, that's why I look at it and go, Metcalf and CHT, right? So what's the disadvantage of those two? Probably neither's a recognised kicker. Neither is a recognised organiser. But between the two, you've got some kicking game there and you've got some organisational skill. And if you're playing more through the middle, you're taking a bit of pressure off them. And if you reckon your back three and your 4-pack's going to amble you up over the 40 onto halfway pretty regularly, then that takes some pressure off too. The other thing I like about CHT and Metcalf is CHT's that bigger body, fearless, will play straight, right? And by playing straight, running hard lines, he'll open up for an out the back to Metcalf, who's your speedier, more lateral player. So setting up on an open side, those two together, like with CHT playing a straighter line and going out the back to Metcalf, I think that looks really good. And I also think CHT is well placed to play a short side for the same reason, sort of like Kieran Foran style, run straight and hard into running a line on the short side on the left side, say, and then you've got Ali Leotoa and say Roger outside him, dangerous runners in tight space. I think that would work. So I quite like them as a complement. I also think CHT is a good defender. So, and I don't think Metcalf is. I think Metcalf's going to have problems defensively this year. We're going to be covering for him. So it's very important that the other half is defensively solid. So, and by the way, I think Temari is. I don't really have a view on Boyd. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But I feel like the consensus and probably the coaching staff too saw Temari pull out some big games last year, and they're going to want to give him a starting spot. And it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that when Sean came back into the side at the back end of last year, that it was Tamate that missed out, and and obviously CHT was kept ahead of him, and then Metcalf came in for a couple of games towards the end when he was back from injury. Metcalf has been pretty vocal about, he grew up playing number 7. He wants the 7. He's confident he can do it. I do. He turns 26 the day of the Vegas game, so he's getting on a bit to have not played much first grade anyway, but not much first grade or any first grade at halfback. He's even only played a handful of games in New South Wales Cup as a halfback. So it's quite a big step up to sort of run the team, organise the team. I think, maybe he does have what it takes to do that, but fairly big. If I kind of compare it to guys that came on as a halfback fairly late, like Jamar Fogarty. He was around about the same age, but he played 90 odd Queensland Cup games as a halfback. So just those repetitions and obviously the kicking game, the experience of steering a senior team around the park, he just doesn't quite have that. So, best of luck to him if he gets that 7, but it's, it'd be a mighty effort, I think, if he was able to make a good fist of it. I agree with you about CHT. I'd love to see him as part of it. I think he sort of almost complements them all. I think Metcalf kind of has to be there, though, is that, he's obviously he might be the quickest player in the club, a game breaker, and whether that's at 5'8" or halfback, I guess we'll find out. Tamati sort of heading towards 30. I'm not quite sure if he has what we need, even though he did have some big games in that sort of mid-season revival last year, but he also had a couple of shockers on the back of that. And Boyd, I wouldn't be surprised to get a spot just on this, strength of the kicking game. He's the youngest of the lot, but he's played the most NRL games at halfback of the lot. He's a 80% goal kicker, field goal kicker, which we obviously lacked last year at some pretty crucial junctures. And I honestly could see any combination of those four. You could make a case for any of it for me. I'm sure they've got more of an idea. Listen to Andrew Webster's podcast with the Warriors that came out yesterday, I think. He sort of said, well, it didn't really give too much away, but said, well, say to two of them, it's yours to start with, and the other two, it's yours to take off them. So, very interesting, I guess, to see what that first trial lineup looks like against Cronulla on February 7th, I think that one is.
That first trial, though, is usually a good indication of who your cup halves are going to be rather than your first-grade halves. Like, it's almost the opposite.
Yeah, good point.
Whoever they pick there, they'd be firming in my mind as our second-tier halves.
Yeah. And, I guess we've got one more trial back at home the week after that. That might be a more clear indication I'm sure he's not. Surely they're not going, especially with round one coming up so soon. I don't think they'll be, looking for trial form to pick their round one team.
If history's anything to go by, the second trial first half, they pretty much pick their best 17 and give them 40 minutes. So that's
absolutely.
I think that's probably how it's going to play out here. But it's not an easy call. There's plenty of, like, if you look at Boyd, he's got the best kicking game. So why don't we want him in our starting 17? Is it lack of creativity? We don't think he's going to do enough in good ball. Is he just too mediocre in other areas of the game? Is that the concern?
Oh, well, I think so. It's not like I've studied Titans games, but just from my sort of, and he has, he's broken the Warriors' hearts in the past with a golden point field goal, but he's not doesn't have a high rate of try assists. I think he fell out of favour at the Titans last year and had one. I think he's a very low try assist strike rate for a halfback. Just the 1 in 9 games last year. So that could be, for a team that might struggle with that, whichever combination of those four players you pull out, particularly if we have Roger or Chance at fullback, just sort of lacking that that natural ball playing or creativity, that might count against Boyd, but maybe the other strengths that he has could sort of counter that.
Webby did, we're going to find out if that was Webby playing to Sean Johnson's strengths, but he did love that kick high to a corner, grind the other kick chase, grind the other team down. If he wants to play that kind of game, he'd probably pick Tanner Boyd, because I don't see Temare or Metcalf being able to land a midfield bomb on it, like a bomb from the 50 on a dime 5 meters out, the way Sean did. But Tanner Boyd probably can do that, So if he wants to play that way, he might be tempted to pick Tanner. And but if he's going to move a little bit away from that sort of grind them down style that we had the last couple of years, then maybe he'll do something different.
Yeah, fascinating to see how it works, and I guess also how long they persist if it's not working, because you got to give whoever you give the keys to a decent run at it, but then when you season to slip away from it, especially if there's a couple of guys carving up in New South Wales Cup, and I guess the potential X factor, sorry, Fonz, is that CHT was a fairly regular bench selection last year, and obviously Healy coming into the mix clouds that a bit, but surely Chanel is a contender for that sort of role again if he doesn't get a starting half spot.
Yeah, I mean, but it's all well and good to say we're going to pick two and then you other two can take it off them. But they're just so different players. Like, so you kind of almost got to start with, how do I want to play? And like I said, there is no point having a kicking game a game based around that, trap them in the corner, grind, set for set. If your halves aren't good at kicking, you'll never have any of the other players replace Boyd if that's the core focus of your game, right? And so he's got to decide that almost at the same time he chooses his halves, and it's no easy way to do it. That's why I'm saying I'd more focus on a slightly different game. I'd be looking at opening up the middle. I'd be less worried about getting into a grind. I'd be more interested in using the ball through the middle third of the field, personally.
Yeah. That's sort of where I think maybe it's if they are quite focused on a high quality kicking game, at least in the number 7, that might count against Tamati, that game against the Bulldogs. He came up really short in that one, and that sort of might be sort of hanging in the back of the mind. It's probably not his, and he is a guy that's played mostly 5'8", Tamati as well. And sort of seems to not really factor him into the number 6 conversation. But yeah,
let's do this real quick. Let's do this real quick. So kicking game, the order would be Boyd 1, Metcalf 2, Tim Murray 3. Boyd, Metcalf, CHT, Tim Murray, probably in that order.
Yeah. From what I've seen, I would almost put Chanel ahead of Metcalf.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that'd be close. Yeah, and then sort of attack and creativity. How would you order them? You'd probably go Temare.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Temare, Metcalf, CHT, Boyd.
Yeah. Yeah, still a very, very slim margin between the top 3. I could make an argument for any of the top 3 to be in any order.
And defensively, how would you order them? I mean, I'd probably go. I haven't seen enough of Boyd, so I might be underrating him, but I'd probably go CHT, Temare, Boyd, Metcalf.
That's great defenders. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Boyd holds his own, and he's played a bit of hooker as well, so he's can stand up in the middle. But I think you got the order pretty right there.
Yeah, so it's one of these things where there's no. You got to pick what you want. Anyway, probably covered that enough. We'll find out. What else have we got? What else have we covered? All the stuff of the day.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I did have a little statistical follow-up to one of the points we kind of talked to Andrew McFadden about. If you'll indulge me, Fonz.
Sure.
And it was sort of around building a squad where you've got a lot of long-term players, and we talked about the fact that there's been quite high turnover. COVID obviously didn't help, but the aim of being a development club is that you're going to have guys sticking around for a long time. And so I did go back into the statistical archives just to have a look at the Warriors. I've always felt like we haven't kind of matched up with other clubs as far as having long-term servants, and so I've compared it to a few other clubs that came in around the same time as us, and the statistics are pretty glaring. So 250 gamers, the Warriors have only had 2 in their 30 years. The Cowboys have had 4, and they obviously came in the same year as us. The Storm, they're 3 years younger than the Warriors. They've had 6 250 gamers. and I've put the Broncos in there. Obviously, they've had an extra 7 years. They've had 10 250 gamers, but all but 2 of those were inside their first 30 years. 200 gamers, Warriors 5, Cowboys and Storm 10, Broncos 16, and 150 gamers, Warriors 12, Cowboys 18, Storm 19, Broncos 28. So it sort of ties a little bit back into your question about, who's our greatest ever forwards. It is tough because you've had these great players, but they weren't, there for that long. We got them fairly deep into their career, like in the case of Price and Wiki. It's just interesting. And you looked at that Penrith team, the current defending premiers, that grand final lineup. They had 5 150 game players and 4 100 game players. You look at our current squad with Tohu, Jazz, both 100 gamers, AFB and Montoya leaving. They were on the they were going to cross the 100 mark if Montoya kept a spot. Our current squad, we've got Bunty, who's on the outer. You probably wouldn't see him adding too much to his 142 games. You got Roger at the back end of his career, 131. Egan has a good chance of cracking that 200. He's 102 games for us. And then you sort of got Pompey getting towards a fringe player now, 96 games, CHT, 72 games. Dallin, a veteran, and he's played 71. Then you're down to Chance, 48, Tom Ale, 46. So it's going to take a long time to sort of build a core of long-serving players. Some of those that I just mentioned, probably on their way out or don't have too many years left in their career. So, it's just an interesting one. I think it is, it's obviously not the only thing, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, but having long-serving players, there is something to it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, what we're talking about with Cappy, players coming through the grades, playing for the club, sort of emerging, and then we pick and choose which ones we want to keep. And, because it's not just about first grade games, right? It's about games in the club, in the system. And a player who comes through having spent 4 years, 5 years in the system is going to be, as far as the club goes and how the club plays, a little bit of a veteran compared to, they've just then got to adjust to first grade compared to pulling someone in from another club who's never played in our system. So, it's definitely a part of the reason why the Warriors have underperformed over the years. We just never had a stable enough system and not enough continuity of good players. It's just a reality. But I feel like we're fixing that now.
Yeah, and just sort of tying to that, and I guess it's something we did sort of touch on that as well with Cappy. Fox Sports have started rolling out a few articles about the NYC winning grand final teams while that competition was going, and obviously the Warriors were a dominant force in that competition, and sort of, I guess we naively thought that would just flow on to long-term success for our first grade team. And you look at those teams, and obviously Sean Johnson came through there. Guys like Elijah Taylor, he didn't really stick around that long. Hurrell, who was ended up being a bit of an enigma, but beyond a handful of players, very few of them actually kicked on and had successful first grade careers with the Warriors. So it is more about bringing them through, but sort of ensuring they take that next step. There's any number of players that sort of went nowhere, a few that found success at other clubs. But it was amazing the amount I just assumed I'd know all of them, and most of them had played a lot of first grade, but it just wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there. One is, and we talked with Cappy about this, like you can pick players based on the players you think are most likely to win you an SG Ball or a Jersey Flegg comp, or you can pick players based on the players you think are most likely to mature to genuine NRL players, and they're two different things, So, especially at the younger age groups, the physicality, which you sort of come back to the pack on that as other players mature, and in NRL, like to a point, there's some physicality that is just an asset, but not at NRL level. No one's really too worried about how big you are. They know how to tackle you, and so I think there was a bit of that in the Warriors end. We were picking a team to win the 20s, rather than picking a team for NRL. But the other thing is, like, even the really successful junior teams, quite often it's only one or two who go through the NRL in each year. Like, it's the model is really like if each year your development system produces 1 to 2 first graders, that's about all you can expect. So that over 10 years you might produce 15 players, 20 players. That's about normal. And so the reality is, even in a team that wins the comp, you might get 3, out of that go on to NRL rather than 1 or 2. Maybe you get 4 if it's an absolute freak bumper year. But most of the players who do that just won't play NRL. And so that's why development is such a long, slow grind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty good season opening shift from us there, Fonz. What do you reckon?
I think so, mate. Yeah, we're going to have to do a proper season preview at some point where we pick best 17s and all of that. But I think that should happen probably after the trials. So we've seen them play the trials. And so I suppose the next cab off the rank will be a first trial review, something like that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, mate. We'll have a few bits and pieces. I actually have recorded a podcast with the great David Middleton, stats and history guru. So we'll roll that one out probably next week. But yeah, we'll have maybe a couple more guests if we can wrangle them and that sort of thing. Keep this pre-season momentum going. Fonz, I've always had trouble signing off these podcasts. Very clumsy. So I watched the Jerry Springer Netflix documentary. I imagine Jerry Springer was a little bit too lowbrow for your taste back in the 90s, Fonz, but I was fairly partial to it. But he had a good sign off, and I'm going to try and, now that Jerry Springer has passed away, I might just try and commandeer it for the purpose of this podcast. But until next time, take care of yourself and each other.